I think what I learned from my startup journey, beyond that it's challenging and it's hard, it's also that I want to do it again. And thanks to that journey, I also realized what it takes, what it requires, or what are the skills I need to learn, connections I need to make that will make me in a better position to try again in the future. And this is just personally for me. I found that I'm more creative, or I think better without huge financial stress. So having that financial stability was very important to me in my sort of next phase. So I wanted to learn, build connections, explore ideas on the side in a lower stakes, lower risk kind of way, so I can be more creative.
Welcome back to another episode of Wise and Shine. I'm your host, Dawn, SG Budget Babe, and I have with me my co-host.
And I'm Alex Low, _mindset coach.
Today's episode, we'll be talking to someone who recently went viral on LinkedIn. And his story is pretty interesting because in 3 months, he went from being a startup founder to closing the shop, being unemployed, going viral for LinkedIn for documenting that and his various job attempts, and then landing a job. And I repeat, this was all in 3 months. And his name is Varick. Can you introduce yourself? What do you do and where can they find you?
Hi everyone, happy to be here with you, Alex and Dawn. So I'm Varick. I'm a ex-startup founder and currently I'm a software engineer. So you can find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Varick, for being here with us today, right? And seems like 3 months has been a lot of like this whirlwind romance. From being a startup founder to closing the company. We've seen that viral post on LinkedIn and you just shared with us, I think it's 400,000 views. How many of us get 400? I think in 1 year, I don't even get 400,000 views, right? So that's amazing. How are you feeling now, right? It's been 1.5 months in the new job. Please share with us your emotions. I think it would be great for us to know.
Quite at peace. I think that's the word that comes to my mind. Pretty excited about where I'm at right now and also like possibilities for the future.
And it mustn't have been easy, right? Because as a startup founder, you built your baby, you grew it, you brought in folks to work for your vision and team. And to have made that decision to shut it all down must have been a lot of thought process behind it, a lot of deliberation. Could you walk us through what you had in mind and your considerations when you decided to pull the plug?
Yeah, I think like starting a business is like creating a baby. So for me, any work that I put out, anything that I create, it's really a part of me. And to kill it, it really feels very painful. So especially so when it's so public, it's very uncomfortable to acknowledge and admit like, oh, this thing that I tried so hard, I put in so much time and effort, all those expectations that I had for this thing and also expectations that I have my co-founder and my team, and all those were just not going to happen. I think that was really difficult.
You were part of the Antler, was it accelerator or incubator program?
More like an incubator program. So for our startup, we were quite early stage, but we had pre-seed funding from Antler Singapore. Not that many investors, just that one main.
Maybe you can share with viewers as well, what was the idea? What was the problem that you were trying to solve with this startup?
Yeah, so it was with me and my co-founder, my secondary school friend. And it just happened that we both wanted to start our business. Around the time we started was when a lot of the Gen AI stuff came out. So ChatGPT and a few others, this kind of tech came out and was available for other companies to use. So we sort of jumped on that bandwagon when we were thinking about ideas to use. At first, it was like building chatbots for companies, helping with like customer service, inquiries, appointments, bookings, that kind of stuff. Later on, we pivoted to more user research, customer research. So for other kind of companies that want to understand what their customers are saying, feeling, complaining about their product. So we wanted to use AI to analyze it as a whole and create insights, themes that, the staff or management could take action on. So that was what the startup was about. There were some challenges with the business, the customers, and other things that contributed to like me shutting up.
What were the red flag? That helped you? Was it like, okay, 3 strikes, then we will go, or we will try a little bit more, and the 10th time, then we will call it quits?
I think there were multiple. For me, I've started like side projects, freelance, maybe small businesses on the side, but this was like the first like real full-time venture-backed kind of business that I did. So I think I was very optimistic or idealistic. I was like, okay, in first few months, we're going to accomplish this. Next month, we're going to accomplish this. All these like milestones and achievements that I expected us to quickly achieve. But then like 1 month in, they're like, like we didn't get much done. Like there's a lot of like small decisions that we didn't expect. Roadblocks that we encountered. Then I realized we spent so much time and effort into this business. We tried to make all the best decisions, but then it feels like we haven't made much progress from day one. And then took a step back. I'm like, wait, so how long do I have to be in this for? I mean, even before I started, we sort of know like starting a business is a many year journey. I'm not naive to expect like overnight success, but the idea expect or like the number of years is expected, but putting the time and not get any progress, that is the real challenge.
So it wasn't that your runway or your funding or your resources had run out. It was more of the intangibles that you felt, let's just stop it here. It's not working the way we thought it would.
Like once I realized, okay, wow, we spent so much time getting nowhere, then like how much longer do I have to work on this? How much sort of pain and suffering do I have to endure to get any kind of like any small reward? And then I felt like the journey was too long, too high commitment. I basically felt trapped.
So it's like, you in 6 months, this is how you felt, this is what you've encountered, and then you extrapolate it over the years and like, wow, I don't think I can take that. So that's where you made that decision. And did you have to convince your co-founder to feel the same?
Or did he also feel the same way?
I did communicate like some of the feelings. I mean, it is really uncomfortable, this conversation to have your co-founder, because I think we both gave up on other stuff to work together. We both committed to this. And then it feels like crap to say like, actually, I'm not so sure about this thing, like this partnership, this vision, this promise that we had. And I think we know each other long enough. And this is also not our first business together. So yeah, out of mutual respect, anytime, okay, leading up to the shutdown, I say, okay, by this certain date, I think if things don't improve, I may not stick around.
And did you feel that was due to a poor market fit? Like, because you set out wanting to solve a problem and what you described, I can imagine businesses and companies finding value for that. But do you feel in the end it was a poor market fit in terms of the problem solution, or that the customer acquisition and sales process was longer than expected and hence it couldn't come in time for the entire business to run?
That is 100% true. Like more tech startup founder, you think like, oh, this is a huge market. I managed to successfully convince myself and my co-founder and my investor why this is a huge market, this big thing. And then my next job is just to put it out in the market. But then once you actually talk and try to sell the product, and then I'm like, hey, this is not really a painful problem. This is not something people are willing to pay for. That also like made me realize like, oh, it's not that straightforward. Like, it's not easy.
I mean, to be fair, it could also be sometimes about timing, right?
Yeah.
Because the time that you said you started this and closed it down was also the period where the tech winter was happening and companies were cutting their budgets on corporate tech spend. So I can imagine if you actually launched it at a different time, maybe things would have been different, but fate happens, timing matters, and that's what led you to shut it down. So after you shut down, let's talk about the grieving process. Alex, earlier on, you mentioned the word grief, which I thought was very apt, and you too shut down a business recently. Did you feel that grief?
I think the grief is something that you definitely will feel. It's a matter of at which point you feel that grief. It could happen immediately, it could happen a week, a month after, and also that duration of grief. Honestly, I don't think I have completed my grief. I'm not sure at which stage. So I have accepted that. So acceptance is one of that phases or that stage. I jumped straight into paternity leave, right? So there have been other priorities that have been occupying my mind, and also other things that I have stepped up or picked up to do. So I would say that I'm somewhere in the middle, which is, I guess, a good question to ask you as well right now, Varick, whether you are past that or, at which stage of grief are you in? Definitely a year is not a short period of time. To others, it's 1 year, but to you, it could probably feel like 5 years or 10 years of your time, energy and effort that you put in.
Your youth.
I think my experience was every project or company or idea that I work on, the amount of grief is sort of different. The startup that I worked on, it was still okay. The grieving process wasn't super long.
How do you quantify that, when you say the amount of grief is different?
Yeah, I think it's just based on feeling. Like, to be honest, in the last few weeks, I was just very eager to move on already. Yeah,
Right.
That's actually how I, honestly was feeling about it. I just didn't want to spend another day working on it. Like, that was the feeling I felt, which is kind of unexpected because I've worked on other projects for a shorter amount of time and I felt even more grief.
Understand.
So it's definitely not time. But I think it takes courage to admit when something has failed, and to decide to pull the plug early is also important. Some people never get past that. They just continue chugging along until it's too late. But Varick, in your original post that went viral, you also mentioned the immense challenges of the startup grind. Can you elaborate on some of these immense challenges and what lessons did you learn?
I think in terms of starting a business, there's two kinds of challenges. One is like the external, more like hard challenges, like business, selling to customers, building the product, marketing, prioritizing features,
and making money.
making money. Honestly, all really difficult stuff. And the other kind of challenge I say is more internal. the personal kind of difficulties, emotional challenges and all. That was the part that I encountered, like, cause I feel like hard problems, but like it's all in a sense learnable. You can read a book, ask for advice, try enough times to get better at it. But I've always felt like the more personal challenges, like that one was more difficult or not as easy to just learn and just like deal with it.
Yeah, I can imagine like explaining to your parents why you're pursuing a startup and not being paid a salary by going to a normal corporate job in their eyes. Or like what I heard from you earlier on is wondering if you were on the right path, wondering if it was worth all those sacrifices. Did you feel that as well?
I mean, all the time, right? But I guess if we are purpose driven in what we're doing, even the work that I do now after closing the business, it's still somewhat in that same space. So, I mean, even for yourself, right? You're still in tech, so that's great. I think I want to dig a bit more on that point where you raised when you said the internal challenges or struggles were more difficult to deal with. Dawn, you mentioned dealing with parents, that's one. But what other internal challenges? Was it that feeling of inadequacy, or was it insecurity? Was it about imposter syndrome? Maybe I'm just not meant for this, would be great to hear from you.
There is definitely a bit of all those things you mentioned. So I think this is more relevant due to my, I guess, upbringing or like my education. So for many years, I always pride myself as a very smart, very hardworking, very good at my job, good at coding. So as an engineer, I'm the person that people go to for help, for advice. I'm here to solve, fix, build their stuff. I'm the sort of subject matter expert. And that is something that made me feel really good. That boosts my ego. That means like when I tell people, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm a software engineer, then I like to think, oh, I'm a smart person, I can get things done. And then when I transition into like entrepreneur, and then I realize, oh, I'm bad at a lot of things. I can't do a lot of things. I suck at a lot of things, and I keep getting rejection after rejection. Every time I fail or I get rejected by a customer, which is very normal for any like sales process, but it wasn't, I haven't gone through many times of that. And then I feel like, oh man, maybe I'm not that good as I thought I was. Or like, if I'm not good at what I do, then what does that make me? So I made a mistake of measuring my self-worth to my work or my abilities.
Although actually now that you, on hindsight, would you say that it's actually two sets of different skills that you find validation in?
Yeah, I feel like you're very harsh on yourself, because it's like you could be the smartest person in tech, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a good administrator, a good chief ops, a good salesperson. On hindsight, as Alex said, was it that you were being too harsh on yourself?
I would think so, and my therapist would probably agree with you.
Also, it got so bad that you had to seek therapy to align.
Or was that something you were already doing even prior to starting?
Actually, as part of the startup journey, I kind of know that the personal struggles, the emotional challenges would be one of the biggest obstacles I would face. I think when I started the business, I also started going for therapy.
So you're conscious that would happen and you proactively sought out therapy to balance that. But in the end, you felt that it wasn't as helping as much to you and the runway was up. That's why you decided to close it.
It's not like a business coach, or it's not like a 3-week course that you can take and then like you can just magically deal with all your problems.
So is this something that you feel like you probably will not want to go back into again after that? Because you mentioned this is not your first business, right? You started something with your ex-co-founder previously.
While the start was my first sort of real business, but I did dabble in side business and as an agency or as freelance. Even though I tell my friends and family and I wrote my post like, oh, it's so painful, it's so challenging, the startup journey, I would absolutely do it again.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that level of insight was not visible from your LinkedIn post.
Well done. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say like you have a really interesting story, which is the reverse of what we usually hear from people. We had a guest previously on the show, Adrian, and we will put the link down below, where he wrote a book titled No More Bosses. And his story and what we talk about was really from transitioning as an employee to being self-employed, right? To being your own boss. But your story, on the other hand, the exact opposite. Is few people would go from being a founder, being a boss, into the corporate workforce and go back to full-time employment. Aside from the fact that you shut it down so you needed something. But what made you make that switch? Let's talk about like the intangible, because being employed versus being self-employed is a very different ball game, right? What made you go that other direction?
So after I shut down my startup, yeah, right, I did think, do I want to be self-employed or go back to being an employee? I spent like quite a good number of weeks thinking about this. I think what I learned from my startup journey, beyond that it's challenging and it's hard, it's also that I want to do it again. And thanks to that journey, I also realized what it takes, what it requires, or what are the skills I need to learn, connections I need to make that will make me in a better position to try again in the future. And this is just personally for me. I found that I'm more creative, I think better without huge financial stress. So having that financial stability was very important to me in my sort of next phase. So I wanted to learn, build connections, explore ideas on the side in a lower stakes, lower risk kind of way, so I can be more creative, I can be more adventurous, rather than just stress, okay, what gets me money tomorrow? Because I find that isn't helpful for me. So that's how I decided, okay, go back to employee, it's better.
I think that's a great learning, right? Thanks for sharing. And it's quite evident that you've put a lot of thought into it and you now understand yourself. So that sense of or level of self-awareness is a lot greater now, right? Knowing how you can perform better and be more productive and efficient. And at the end of the day, you might go into entrepreneurship again once you've acquired all of these skill sets that you feel like perhaps you needed a bit more training in, right? So that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's
I
perfect.
wholeheartedly agree. I think we generally talk about different types of people being suited for different types of job. And most people would say they're either like, oh, I'm totally going to be like just employee lah. Yeah, I cannot drive things. I'd rather just turn up for work, get paid a salary and have that stability. My role is designed for me. I just go there and perform it. Whereas other people were like, no, I want to direct things. I want to have more ownership and control. I want to test, experiment, and the downsides don't really affect me that much. So we always talk about it, and there's lots of books charting out these different processes, these different personality types. But what you shared is also quite enlightening in the sense that if you are self-aware, maybe it's really just about being humble and understanding, maybe I'm not yet cut out or ready to be an entrepreneur yet because I still lack the skills, the network, the experience at this stage of my life. And then designing yourself purposefully to go and acquire those so that when you try again in chapter 2 or chapter 3, your odds of succeeding will be even higher. Yeah, I love that very, very deliberate and very high level of self-awareness.
I'm curious though, did your current employer or boss ask you that same question? Are you going to go back into entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is also important for our viewers, right? If that question were to be asked, how do you navigate that question? Do you answer it as honestly as you can or you need to be? Or do you need to be polishing up and brushing it up a bit to tell it in a different way?
You definitely have to craft your answer to accomplish your goal. If my goal is to get hired, then I have to convince them why I'm a best fit and without compromising on my values, which is like honesty and authenticity.
So you're saying that it's about being honest, but in a way that still meets the other person's needs. While not saying that I'm not going to jump ship like tomorrow, obviously. I'll still be here to learn. But I do have the intention in the future, if opportunities open, to go back to being a startup founder next time.
Yes. One of the reasons why I joined my current company is also because the other full-time hire is also ex-founder. So I think it's a very small company right now. There's very few of us, but then we all, as me and my teammates, you kind of know like, okay, because we have this background, so it won't be very surprising if we eventually want to go back out there and do our own thing.
I guess the founder or your current employer probably knows that as well, but just to catch you at the right time also lah, right?
Yeah.
Because you probably can add a lot of value to the company at this stage of their growth. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show.
Wow, you also openly shared about your job process on a LinkedIn post, which is very relevant to many viewers and listeners today because you detailed the number of applications, the rejection. I saw some really big tech names in there, and you even had a row that says those that ghosted you, and then those that you made it to for the HR screenings, the interviews, and finally the offers. That table was so comprehensive. I was just like, wow, when I looked at it. Can you take us through that job search journey and how that experience was like for you?
Yeah, when I shut down my startup, even though my friends and my investors also told me, you should take time to rest, like recharge, think about your future. But then I was just in a state of, I have to do something. I have to get something done. I just felt very restless. And I was just eager to get a job, at least have something going on for my sanity. So I thought, oh, I've been a founder. I used to work at a big tech company. It should be easy to go back into it as an engineer. But then I underestimated how bad the job market was. How different it was compared to when I was employee in the past. Because now I think the market's it's definitely shifted. Companies are more strict and they're more focused on revenue rather than growth.
Yeah, you're right. Lots of the big layoffs in recent times that we've seen, Cisco, Intel, a lot of them are tech companies, and I have a lot of friends working in tech that got retrenched or laid off, sadly. When you were applying for all this, so again, it was a timing thing, right? If you applied during the wave, which is when you started your business, you probably may have landed the job, but again, it's the downturn, so that was made more difficult. But you had also like 17 rejections. And some of them are, again, tech names that I can imagine your fit would be quite a good fit for, because you mentioned in your LinkedIn post, you applied for places such as Google, SAP, ResMed, Airwallex, etc. And can you walk us through that rejection? Was it more of like you applied and didn't even get a chance, so you couldn't even get past the first stage? Or it was like you went through, but it got rejected later on?
So most of them, I got rejected like straight off the bat, right after the application. So like any job posting they applied, like on LinkedIn, they were write, okay, over 100 people applied. And that was like for all the listings. So I quickly learned, oh, it's very competitive now. And some of them, yeah, I got interviewed, managed to make it all the way through. Most of them, I did not. The one that hurt the most was the one where I know the co-founders. And I thought like, this will be easy in. I can just talk. I can just like, they know me, I know them. I thought I could just like, just chat a bit, then join them. But I got rejected by them. That one was the moment where I was like, oh, I guess...
Could it have been, do you know the reason? Is it a budget constraint or?
It's a combination of two reasons. One is technical bar was higher than expected. Or rather, they were looking for someone more senior than me. I think as an employer, right, you have more control, you have more say, you have more options. So you can be a bit more picky.
Yeah, that's true. So you made it to 8 of them for HR screening. What was that screening like? Do you mean interviews?
Screening is usually, first round is like HR or the recruiter will just call, chat you for 15 minutes, 30 minutes just to assess whether you're not crazy. Assess whether values wise, are you okay before they bring in the hiring manager.
Right. So it's the initial call or interview phase before the actual in-depth interview.
Yes.
Right. And out of these 8, how many did you make it to the actual proper interview where you get to demonstrate and talk to the hiring manager?
Around 4 companies.
Wow, it feels like there's this big funnel. Yeah. He started with like so many and then it just trickles and it's really so little at the end.
What about withdrew? What does that mean?
Withdrew is where I withdrew my application.
Oh, why would you do that?
Oh, yeah, why?
Yeah, it sounds quite funny, right? Like I'm so desperate for a job, yet I still withdrew my application.
Then there must have been some rationale, so we'll take us through that thought process.
Either reading about the company or talking to the recruiter or the interviewer, do I feel like it's the right fit for me? Or because I think sometimes, I trusted my instincts. Like if it's not a good fit, I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. I just let them know upfront.
Were there any roles that you interviewed for and you were offered, but you did not take? So you finally took one, which is Voltate. Were there any others that were offered and you didn't take?
There were no offers that I rejected. Because usually if it's a bad fit, either the company or me can sense it pretty early on. So it doesn't even get to the offer stage.
Okay. Yeah. But I think it's still quite good, 1 out of 31.
Yeah. We have heard stories of hundreds.
Yeah.
So it can be quite painful. But I think it's really reflective of the current market scene, right? Whereby even if you have the right background, the right skills, and you feel that you're an edge over other applicants, the problem with today's market is a lot of people are really getting displayed. A lot of people, including senior hires. So the competition for that job is more intense more than ever. In any other normal circumstance, you would be a superior candidate, but not in today's world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least until, things stabilizes again. When you step back from being a founder, what valuable lessons or skills did you feel you took away from that entrepreneur journey that can benefit you in your new role?
So in terms of hard skills, it's definitely broadly I call it thinking critically. Before I was a founder, I would just take instructions, do things that I'm told. Just take the task, take the ticket and then deliver it without thinking too much about how does it impact the business, how does it impact customer, impact revenue. And then where the founder had business owner at, then I was like, okay, some things are not that important. Some things engineer may think it's important, but actually in the broader context of the business, it's actually not urgent. Like you can deal with it later. So I think that is probably the most valuable skill in terms of where I'm at right now. Now I'm back as an employee, but I can try my best to see things from the business owner point of view and then manage my own tasks, manage my priorities, manage a project according to those priorities instead of what benefits me as an employee, but what benefits the company.
I had a different conversation with someone who works in a large tech firm, right? So they are launching a new product. So it's a side project, large tech firm. And customer keeps coming back to say, you need to make changes to this. And then he goes back to the software engineer and software engineer says, oh, this one's not important. I don't want to do, right? So, but that's of course large tech company as opposed to if you now as a startup. So different case, but that's where the software engineers actually call the shots.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's lovely how you actually managed to make that transition and bring out the merits that being a founder has. Because what you described is very true, right? Someone who has always been an employee, who has been simply, Alpine, give me money, I've done my work. Like they don't appreciate the pains it takes to get that money in the first place. And they're just very, wrapped up in their role, wrapped up in their siloed role, without realizing the broader implications on the business. Whereas founders, on the other hand, are more like business owners. So you can appreciate that. But what you said is you didn't like the stress of being the business owner. So now it's you go into this job, you're an employee, but you have an appreciation for the priorities and the pains and the turmoil of being a business owner. And you can make decisions in your role to help support that while not taking on the stress and liability, right? I love that. I think that's a very nice way to craft and, switch that. Hey, I'm an ex-founder, you should totally hire me, because it's true. Most people wouldn't have this skill set.
I think that big picture thinking is important.
Exactly.
And even for me, if let's say I were to hire, I would want to hire someone that has had experience with big picture thinking rather than thinking in silo and just doing the work that I need to do.
Exactly. If not, there will be teams and breakdowns in processes and budgets. So that really helps. Wow. Thanks, Varick, for sharing us your story. This has been very insightful. And if you guys are interested to read the original post that went viral, you can look him up on LinkedIn. We'll also put his link down below. I think I've heard lots and learned so much from this interview. Alex, do you have anything, burning questions?
One last thing actually though. So 1 year you spend doing your own thing. I have my own autonomy, do my own thing. Whatever time I wake up and start work, I can do it. And now for the last 1.5 months, you have been having to sort of like report. Of course, it might be remote work or hybrid work or a little bit more flexi, but still, it is not the same, right? Having your own autonomy. How do you navigate that difference in terms of work lifestyle?
Everything is a choice. Me choosing to work at this company as an employee is my choice. So that, in a sense, gives me power. If I hate it, I can leave. But the fact that I'm still here, I'm still working for this company, for this boss, it's 100% my control. So while there are some things about the work, the market, whatever that I don't like, it is absolutely within my control to decide how I act and what job I choose to take in the world that I live in.
I think that's an excellent way to end the session. Right?
Yeah, and that's a very powerful mindset
Yes,
to remember
exactly.
that you or we are the ones who make our own choices and decisions. We always have a choice to walk away, but if we're not, then let's do the job as best as we can. Thank you so much, Varick, for
Thank you,
sharing us your
Varick. Thank you,
story. We
Varick.
hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Founder Turned Employee, which is the exact opposite of the earlier episode that we had with Adrian on the show. And if you'd like to find Varick, you can look for him on LinkedIn. But if not, let us know in the comments below what else you would like to see. And we hope you've learned lots of insights from even job hunting and how to craft and angle yourself if you guys are in a similar boat. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.